Debbie Alexa is a dental hygienist, program director, and educator at the Mesa Community College in Mesa, Arizona. Debbie has a vast background in mindfulness. She holds a master's degree in contemplative education from Naropa University in Boulder and a certification in mindfulness facilitation from UCLA, home of the Bruins. That wasn't in there. She also has studied mindfulness curriculum development for higher education and healthcare at Smith College in Amherst, Massachusetts, and the University of Rochester Medical and Dental School in New York. Debbie incorporates mindfulness and contemplative practices with the dental hygiene curriculum at MCC, developing more aware and compassionate clinicians. She is the founder of Meal Institute, an organization dedicated to transforming lives through mindfulness awareness. She speaks to healthcare professionals and educators about mindfulness as a way for them to transform themselves and those they serve. She has been practicing yoga and meditation for over 15 years. So, with further ado, I will turn it over to Debbie Alexa. Welcome.
Thank you. I really appreciate everyone spending their lunch hour with me, and I hope that through the next 45 or 50 minutes, I can impart on you some information about mindfulness, and perhaps look at this as a spoonful, a taste of something we're considering doing here at A.T. Still University and extending this to a 7-week course. So I very much think of today as being in the kitchen, stirring the pot, and just tasting to see if it's something that you're interested in. That was a lovely bio from Tanya, so I will skip that part on my little agenda here. So over the next hour, I'm going to help you understand some of the science behind mindfulness and share with you some practices that are easily integrated in anyone's busy life. I have brought a handout, a 5-minute breath practice. We aren't going to do that specifically here today, something similar. That's for you to take home and just tinker with and see what happens. Meditation doesn't just affect the mind, it changes how the mind works. So in the science of neuroplasticity, it has been well documented that practices in this field of mindfulness change the brain, and they change the brain in a very positive way. Some of the studies, most out of the University of Madison in Wisconsin, have illustrated that mindful practices decrease blood pressure, increase the immune system. Other research has exhibited an increase in cognitive function, an increase in memory. Others have illustrated that there is a more compassionate approach to interfaces, either with relationships with family, friends, or as a healthcare provider with patients. There is yet another piece of research that is relatively new, and that is the diminishing of gene expression. And what has been noticed is that in people who practice mindfulness meditation over long periods of time, they actually turn off the aging process, turn off the manifestation of genes that might express into a type 2 diabetes or into some other illnesses, conditions that occur as we age. So if you took a look at a chromosome, kind of has a wiggly X look to it, sort of, and at the end of each one of those chromosomes, they're capped with what's called a telomere. Well, mindfulness, if you think of a telomere as the plastic coating on the end of a shoelace, and after the shoelace gets old, it starts to fray. That's what happens to your telomeres. And stress and cortisol can break those down more quickly. So what the research is suggesting is that mindfulness has a reparative effect on those telomeres, those little ends of your chromosomes. So today's focus is predominantly going to be on using mindfulness for stress management and bringing some practices in that will help calm, ease, lower blood pressure, lower cortisol, increase serotonins, etc. So I'd like to get a pulse on the audience to find out how many of you practice mindfulness meditation or some other form of meditation. So about half a dozen. And of those who do not, how many of you have even heard of mindfulness? All right. Anyone willing to kind of jump out with what your definition or your understanding of mindfulness is?
Being present in the moment.
Present in the moment. Lovely. Indeed it is. Anyone else? Amir.
Letting go of everything, just focusing on what you have, task at hand.
Letting go is huge. Letting go and being present, task at hand. How many of you watched the Seattle Seahawks game this weekend? That was really exciting. Potential of anything happening at any moment. And I think that game really was evidence of that pure potentiality in any given moment. Well, no surprise that Pete Carroll teaches mindfulness to his players, and he has a mindfulness coach that's part of their team. So some of the practices we do today are some of the things that he encourages and expects that his players undertake as well. So mindfulness is being in the present moment. The only moment we have for anything is the present moment, and our minds work in such a way that they really enjoy ruminating over the past or fantasizing about the future. It's very hard to corral the mind and get it to stay put right here in this moment. So some of the things we'll work with today are encouraging the mind to, hey, just for a moment, stay here. Just for a moment, stay here. And do it in a very gentle way. Another aspect of mindfulness is that mindfulness is a condition of non-judgmentalness. So its approach is to be curious like a child, curious and open. Isn't that interesting that I do that? Isn't that interesting? I wonder where that's coming from. So no judgment, just an awareness that's open, curious, without any judgment. So I want to illustrate to you that even if you don't know what mindfulness is, even if you're not a practitioner of mindfulness, you have had mindful moments in your life. And so I'd like to ask if any of you in the arena of athletics have been so on in your, 5K, your marathon, your, volleyball, basketball, whatever you do, that you've just been in the flow. Have any of you had that flow moment? Flow moments are being present in the moment. That's a mindfulness condition. How many of you have ever been in love? And 36 years ago, a long time, but I can still remember when time just stood still, on the phone for hours, staying up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're not tired. Has anyone had that condition in their life? That's a mindful moment as well. Art, being in view of a sunset on a mountaintop, and you just have this peace and serenity that just flows over you. Anyone have that experience? That's a mindful present moment as well. So we all have them. We just perhaps have never been able to put our fingers on them. Now, in contrast, have any of you experienced a mindless moment? A mindless moment, one where the words come out of your mouth and you should never have said it, but you cannot retract it. And those words set a whole cascade of negative sequela of sorts. So that's a mindless moment. Another mindless moment, have you ever pulled into your driveway and it's like, wow, I have no idea how I got here. You've driven and you've just been absent-mindedly daydreaming. So we live in this mindful, mindless, on and off. So my purpose here today is to perhaps help you move into mindful moments more often and with more deliberateness. So a little bit of practice. Enough talk. We'll do a practice. I had to move up here because that's too far away. So this is now the new front of the room. So I have my bell, and when we move into a practice, I'm going to chime to indicate we've moved into a practice, and then I'll chime to indicate we've moved out of a practice. So we have a mind that loves to be active. And there's a misconception oftentimes that the mind, through these practices, needs to be stilled and quiet. Well, you know, that's just really impossible. It just is not going to happen. And so I've worked with enough people for a long enough period of time, and they say, I can't do this because my mind just doesn't work that way. My mind is just always busy, and it's not cooperative. So done, I'm not going to do it. Well, the whole point is to work with those minds that are like this, because that's what minds are. Our minds are really not all that different. So this is a way of just letting your mind know, right now we're sitting. And so we're going to try and drop out of the head and into the body, and just give your mind some coaching. This is what we're going to do now. Give it something to focus on. It wants to be busy, so we're going to help it be busy with something more constructive. The other thing I like to let people know, for those who are really trying to wrangle their mind, like, get on in here, you know, notice your agitation with your mind. Not really a good approach. Wouldn't work with your kids, doesn't work with your dog. Probably not best to wrangle your mind with any kind of violence, force, negativity. Your heart is designed to beat, your lungs are designed to take in air, and your mind is designed to think. You don't want it to stop. Your heart stops, you're dead. Your lungs stop working, you're dead. Your brain stops working, and you're dead. You're brain dead. So we don't want to stop the mind from working. We just want to exercise it in a different way. So we're going to go from in our mind to dropping into our body with a little practice. First thing I'd like you to do is find a position where you feel comfortable. Comfort with balance of effort. So in other words, this is really comfortable, but this is kind of lacking, probably not very ladylike in front of a camera, but it's also lacking effort. So find yourself comfortable, but you've balanced yourself with a bit of effort. Right there, that gives your mind something to focus on. So you've given it a task. The next thing you can do is find a comfortable place for your hands. They can be folded, they can be up, they can be down. There's no magical motion potion for this. Find a place for your hands to rest comfortably. And then, based on your comfort level, find a position for your eyes. They can be open. If you choose open, choose downcast. So we want to try and filter out the stimuli. So have your eyes open, then cast them down to kind of bring in your attention. If that doesn't feel comfortable, you may close your eyes. And whether you're open or closed is just a matter of preference on your part. So find a comfortable position. Find a place where you're balanced between effort and ease. Most postures for mindful meditation are ones that give you a feeling that there's a certain regalness. You're comfortably arising from your seat. Find a comfortable position for your hands where your shoulders don't have pressure on them. And then find a position for your eyes. We'll be doing this for about 3 minutes, and when we're complete, I'll ring the bell. So in this position of balanced effort and ease, place your attention on your feet. Feel the weightedness of your feet on the floor. Notice your toes and your shoes. And become aware of any sensations. And then dropping further into your body, find where your seat meets the chair. Perhaps you notice one part of your seat making more contact than another. Maybe there's an evenness to how you sit. Maybe there's an unevenness to how you sit. And notice when your focus is on your seat, if there's any storylines that start jumping in. How broad your seat is, how small your seat is. Notice when those things arise, and without judgment, just label them thinking. Now move up to your shoulders. See if you can become aware of what's happening in that shoulder space. And if you notice nothing and feel nothing, no worries. Just with ease, be present. And now, notice your breath. Often when we put our attention on our breath, there's a desire to change it, or it becomes hard to breathe. Just be easy about it. With time, that will pass. And pay attention to where your breath is more prominent in you. Perhaps it's the nose, the nasal passages. Or perhaps you feel it in the rise and fall of your chest. Or perhaps you feel it with the expansion of your belly. Again, just notice. Now thoughts are bound to arise because that's what your mind does, is think. When those thoughts arise and you recognize that you're thinking, just label it thinking, and return to something grounding in your body. Something that will anchor you here. The feeling of your feet on the floor, the feeling of your seat in the chair, the feeling of your hands in your lap, or the feeling of breath moving through you. Storylines will move in. They arise from nowhere, and they go back to nowhere. When you notice, label, and return. So that's just a simple example of a practice, a formal practice, similar to the 5-minute meditation that you have there. Some further science on this topic. Numerous studies, countless studies, 8 weeks. 8 weeks of a regular practice. And a regular practice would be 20 minutes a day, divided any way you choose. 10 in the morning, 10 in the afternoon, 20 in the morning, or 20 at night. But 8 weeks has shown to make changes in the gray matter of your brain. And it's not just any part of the brain that gets changed. It's specific centers that get changed. So because many of you are here and you're not in the clinics, I'm going to do a little bit of a brain anatomy lesson here for you. So if we use your arm as a symbol of the brain, from elbow to wrist is the spinal column. And your palm here is part of the brain stem. Now, if we use our thumb as the little example for the primitive part of your brain, we can say that your thumb is the amygdala. And the amygdala is our reactivity center. It's our fight or flight center. It's the center, if we were in trouble and real danger, we would want this to react. This has a quick start application to it. It's going to move quite rapidly. And then over this, and protecting it, this is the cortex of the brain. So what mindfulness research indicates through fMRI is that this is your forehead right here. This front part of your brain is what changes through mindfulness practice. And more specifically, where my little lower fingernail and knuckles are, that part, the prefrontal cortex, that changes the most. And it moves us from a place of easy reactivity to a place of calmly responding. And the theory is that because it is in contact with the primitive part of your brain, it has the ability to soothe and massage. When we feel that anxiety arise, when we feel the desire to react, and we're not threatened in any way, then our prefrontal area is able to calm us down. So the more developed this front part of the brain is, the more we can regulate how we move and react in the world, respond preferably. So that's one of the benefits. The other areas of the brain, memory centers and the insula, those are also enhanced. So there's specific areas, not just randomly all over. The work of breath. So breath has a calming effect. I think that's where that theory, count to 10 before you say anything, is a way of just calming yourself down. My mother was a cigarette smoker, and I'm not advocating this as a stress mechanism, but when we were agitating her, she would smoke. And sometimes I think she smoked because it was good breathing. Not just because of the nicotine, but I think all that breath work that she was doing, and it would calm her down. That's just one of my little personal theories. So we're going to work with breath in a different way, a much more, it's formal yet a lot more informal. You could do this anywhere. Stress releases cortisol. Cortisol has numerous negative effects on the body. Holding on to weight, cortisol ages us, and a number of other things. So mindfulness practices, breath practices decrease our cortisol. They increase our serotonin. One of the ways that happens is we have a very long cranial nerve. Anyone know what long cranial nerve we have? The vagus nerve. And it starts up here and it'll migrate all the way down. Well, it bypasses the area of the diaphragm. And it also bypasses the area of the intestines and stomach. Well, 90 to 95% of our serotonin, which is a feel-good hormone, is stored in our intestines and our stomach. So if we can stimulate our vagus nerve, and we can, which is part of our parasympathetic, and calm ourselves down, we release the good hormones and we diminish the bad hormones. So we're going to practice the breath work. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take your two hands and place one on your chest and one on your belly. And this isn't a formal practice. This is very informal. I want you to go inward, either if you close your eyes or just turn your focus inward. And I want you to notice where your breath is most prominent. Is it going to be feeling your hand move on your chest, or is it going to be feeling your hand move on your belly? So how many of you feel the breath in your, feel your chest move, where that's the most prominent? Okay. And how many of you feel it more prominent in your belly? Okay, so we have more chest breathers than belly breathers. So chest breathers in our culture is the norm. Especially for women, we've been taught to suck in our stomach and have this nice svelte look. And this little pouchy diaphragmatic thing hanging out is unattractive. So we've trained ourselves to hold it all in. Well, it doesn't give our diaphragm any room to move. So when we're breathing shallowly from our upper chest, we are converting about 40 to 50 cubic liters of oxygen. When we breathe from our belly, that's 10 times more. We have about 400 to 500 cubic liters of oxygen that we're moving through. So the brain needs glucose and oxygen. So if you're feeling a little confused and fuzzy, ask yourself, have you eaten? But then also check how you're breathing. Are you breathing from the upper chest, or are you breathing from the belly? The other benefit of belly breathing is that moving the diaphragm in and out will massage our vagus nerve. So that's where the calming effect comes. It comes from our breath being big and full in our belly, and the diaphragm wrapping around and massaging the vagus nerve and stimulating that. So there's some of the benefits of moving our breath down. So now what we'll do is we'll find that position again, rather informally, and see if you can move your belly out and in with your breath. Some people will actually feel it, the movement moving down into their hip crease as well. Some people actually will feel it moving into their back. But see how much expanse you can get in the deep breathing. And we'll do about 10. Now, for some of us, our breathing has been so shallowed for so long, we feel we're going to hyperventilate taking in all this oxygen. So don't pass out on me here. How many of you, even with that awareness placed in your belly, still found it rather challenging to pull air in from below? Yeah, that's totally not uncommon at all. So couple of ways that you can enhance your breathing, get more oxygen in, and get some calm. The first one I'm going to show you is a practice that's taught to the Navy SEALs. And it's taught to the Navy SEALs because they have illustrated that this breath calms them and increases their responses rather than their reactions. It also enhances their ability to think clearly. So their focus is enhanced and their cognitive abilities are enhanced. So it's called a bellows breath, and you place your elbows kind of at a right angle. And this action here, this is your in-breath, and this is your exhale. So with the in-breath, you are giving, even if you're going to be a chest breather, you are doing the work for your intercostals. So you have just helped out your chest cavity, and then it's kind of hard to squeeze your tummy in, and so you've allowed these tummy muscles to relax so that they can move as well. So we'll do that for a couple of breaths. We inhale, and then exhale. And inhale and hold for 2. 1, 2, and then exhale. And on your exhale, if you add just a bit of force, like really bring that tummy in not a way to hold it in, but to push, then you eliminate a lot of the toxins that your body is trying to filter out. So, and then exhale. So that's something, if you're going into a crisis committee meeting and you know it's going to bring everything agitated and up to the surface, it's something that perhaps you can do just really quickly before you go in. Spend a few moments with that breath. Some people in your practices might have limited mobility, and that's not really available to them, or they have chronic pulmonary disease, and so they have some other issues. Really, another way to do this is just take your arms behind your back, and in a way that doesn't produce any pain or discomfort. So if you have a shoulder injury or surgery, you perhaps don't want to do this, but bring your arms back, and you can see what happens to your intercostals. You've allowed them to open and release. So even if you are going to spend most of your time up here, you've broadened the ability to bring in more oxygen. So those are some other things that you can do to alleviate stress. Let's see. Any comments or questions about the activities or something outside of the activities? I'm such a great teacher. Nobody has any questions. Woo! I love that. All right. I have a couple of things. If at any time, please bring them to my attention. So I have a couple of things, and I want to just maybe query the audience to see if this reflects you, maybe all the time or at one point or another. This is written by Krishnamurti. Anyone know who Krishnamurti is? J. Krishnamurti. He is, yes, someone back there. Do you know who Krishnamurti is? Yeah. He is an educator and a philosopher. He has passed away, I think, in the 60s or 70s. I'm not sure, but not all that long ago. And he was a brilliant educator. So this is what he has to say. You try being alone without any form of distraction, and you will see how quickly you want to get away from yourself and forget who you are. That is why this enormous structure of professional amusement, of automated distraction, is so prominent part of what we call civilization. Now, he's writing this before text messaging, Twittering, computers, phones, etc. If you observe, you will see that people the world over are becoming more and more distracted, increasingly sophisticated and worldly. The multiplication of pleasures, the innumerable books that are being published, the newspaper pages filled with sporting events. Surely all these indicate that we constantly want to be amused because we are inwardly empty, dull, mediocre. We use our relationships and our social reforms as a means of escaping from ourselves. I wonder if you have noticed how lonely most people are. And to escape from loneliness, we run to temples and churches or mosques. We dress up and attend social functions. We watch TV, listen to the radio, read, and so on and so on. If you inquire a little more into your boredom, you will find that its cause is loneliness. It is in order to escape from loneliness that we want to be together, we want to be entertained, to have distractions of every kind, gurus, religious ceremonies, prayers, the latest novel. Being inwardly lonely, we become mere spectators in life. And we can be the players only when we understand that the loneliness and go beyond it, because it is beyond the loneliness that the real treasure lies. So, any of you see yourself in that? I know I do. I just like to keep busy, do. My name is Debbie, and Debbra means be busy. Truly, that is what it means, the bee. And that I run away from things, discomfort, rather than face my emotions or face what's going on, I'll, busy myself. So this next practice, we're going to try and find comfort in sitting still. Find comfort in seeing what's going on in there. Find comfort in looking at, maybe there are some emotions that come up. Maybe you'll have the feeling like, I want this to end right now. This is 3 minutes is just way too long. So we're going to play with this just for a little bit to see what reactions, what goes on. I will not ask you to share unless you want to share, but just be really honest with yourself. Why is sitting still challenging for me? What comes up when I sit still? And I would prefer to move because then it's not as bothersome. Okay. Find your regal posture. Find a place where you feel balanced between some effort and some ease. Notice your feet on the floor. Notice the weight of your seat. Notice the sensation of your hands. Eyes open, eyes closed, your choice. And this time, the 3 minutes, I won't be providing any narration. This time, it will be your responsibility to notice what's going on. When you notice thoughts, label them thinking. If you notice emotions, label them emotions. And we'll sit for 3 minutes. Now, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but if you are so willing, would anyone like to share?
Well, I actually fell asleep.
Nice.
And this is a problem I have. I go, 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 go. And when I get home at night, after dinner, everything, I sit down. My husband's like talking to me. I can't find that calming. I'm either go or down.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I just had a nice little nap right there.
There are a few things that happen when we slow down and meditate. One, our mind just completely turns on and moves quite a bit faster. Two, we fall asleep. And often the falling asleep is because we really need to sleep. So the body knows, and you've finally given yourself permission to stop and sit. So that's okay. Now, if you do this on a regular basis and you notice that every time you sit down you fall asleep, then it could be that you are avoiding something. So, you might want to try a walking meditation where you can focus your mind but can stay alert to see what's going on. Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? Mm-hmm.
I notice all the physical sensations like pain and itch,
Mhm.
a twitch, I don't know, like that.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot happening when
There's
the
a lot
brain's not
happening.
busy with other stuff. So.
And I'm glad you brought that up because it's also very common for you to sit down and be still and then your nose starts itching. And it's going to drive you crazy. And then, there's this desire to want to move and scratch it. Now, if it's out of control, feel free to scratch it. If you're in pain, find a new position. But it's also equally of value to watch it and to see what happens to it. Did you do that?
Couldn't resist the itch.
Couldn't resist the itch. With some of your other things that
Pain,
came.
I was able to just kind of, one time I had to actually
Okay.
scratch my back, but sometimes I'm able to watch
And what happened to it when you watched it and you didn't move?
it. It did subside.
It goes away. So often, unless you're dealing with a chronic pain issue, but we're just talking little nags here and there, they will. If you watch it, they're going to come in and then they're going to go out. Nothing is permanent. It's changing. Yeah. So if you have that scratch that it's going to drive you crazy and not do anything, try and scratch it in a really mindful way. In other words, this reactivity, scratch. Rather, it's like, I'm going to scratch. And watch how your hand moves through space, feel the touch of the finger on the skin, and just notice that. Anything else?
Is this a concept of meditation?
It is. There's many varieties of meditation. Mindfulness meditation is one that works with focused attention.
I normally find a lot of resolution by shutting the world out. And my wife and I do this once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And we both have a lot of things to discuss because we've got crazy kids and crazy lives. And so there's a lot of enlightenment that comes, I find, just shutting the noise out.
Yes.
It can be done together, too.
Absolutely. So when I first started doing this, I would sit and some of my most brilliant ideas, or what I thought was brilliant, of course, they come in. They're like, wow, that's amazing, yes. And I would take my pad of paper, write it down. And then, I'd be sitting there quiet again and another brilliant idea, oh, God, write it down. Well, my meditation instructor at the time said, don't do that. I said, this stuff is brilliant. If I don't do that, he says, it's your mind playing games with you. Sit and watch it come in, watch it go, watch it come in, watch it go. Label it thinking, ground yourself in breath, ground yourself in body. Move out of your head and find the focus here. We're training this part of your brain. Your creativity centers are also developing. My meditation teacher said, it's going to come back. If it's really that good, it's going to come back. It's going to come back in the place when you really need it and you desire it. So remain open, but in this 20 minutes, this formal practice, just sit and watch your irritation arise when you want to write it down and watch how that'll go away too. Thank you. Anyone else? So if there is enough interest, and you can chat with Tanya about this, we are considering a 7-week course. Now 8 weeks is the optimal, but 6, 7, 8, I went with 7. And those 7 weeks, each week will be a different focus. So we'll work with calming, breath, emotions, difficult emotions, how to manage and work with those. We'll do some mindful eating. We'll do some, what else is on there? So each week will be a theme, and then the homework will be that you practice starting at 5 minutes a day and working up to 7 minutes a day and 10 minutes a day, and a gradual self-practice, and then just noticing how your life changes. When I first began this journey, nothing happens when you're sitting in the chair. I'll tell you that. Nothing happens. And it's like, really, I just wasted 20 minutes sitting there when, I have all these other things to do. But what you begin to notice is that your relationships start changing, how you walk through the world starts changing. You have a deeper ability to self-regulate. Like, that's a stressful situation, but I can feel the stress and I know how to calm myself out of that stress. So that's when you see the changes, is later. Nothing happens there but frustration. Yeah. Well, I thank you all. I'll be here for a couple more minutes. If you have questions you don't want to address to the group, I'd be happy to speak to you about them, and we'll be in touch with Tanya to see if there's an interest in developing an extended course. Thank you.